This Ridley-O is brought to you by LRN.FM. Feds don't want you to hear them. More NH news and views. My views. Actually, usually it's Liberty news, of course, when it's on my channel. According to the Associated Press, a November 26th, 2020 article, a tavern in Lincoln, New Hampshire, was cited for, maybe I should say fined for allegedly violating the governor's emergency COVID orders. According to the AP article, quote, the tavern was cited for, you'll find this is interesting. Quote, the tavern was cited for a musical performance last weekend. Investigators said two guitarists were performing close together. Customers were seated shoulder to shoulder at the bar, and others were standing and mingling in the bar area. Photos, yada, 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 unquote. Wait, no. Okay, quote, photos also show the tavern's owner, David Cullen, not wearing a mask. Cullen said Wednesday he owns up to his actions, but said the musicians were a couple who live in the same household. Unquote. So, it's just a reminder of how all these restrictions, if you enforce them, you wind up, looking at things like that. Like, how close are two musicians standing together during a performance, even if they're a couple? There was another incident reported in the same article where a country store, this was in Loudon, New Hampshire, responded to all the bureaucrat intrusions and the bureaucrats telling him how to do their mask stuff by posting the following sign, quote, please refer to the Constitution of the United States. We know how to wash our hands, clean surfaces, and not cough or sneeze on people. If you can do that and stay 6 feet away like someone tooted, please come in, unquote. Something else that has happened is a banner has appeared above one of New Hampshire's most busy highways, or highway spots. It's in Bedford on Highway 3. The banner reads, quote, COVID vaccine makers are exempt from liability, unquote. As you may know, the New Hampshire State House has had some sessions at the University of New Hampshire. State Rep John Burt has posted these questions. Quote, question 1, will the state police heavily armed guys be at UNH gun-free zone as they were the last 3 House sessions held at UNH gun-free zone? 2, UNH is a gun-free zone. Should I check my sidearm in one of the outdoor gun lockers they will have on the football field? Unquote. So I guess they were meeting outside at UNH in this particular case. Quote, 3, are we sitting ducks if some crazy nut wants to make the news while we are all sitting on the football field? 4, should I dress in my suit or old Bert's tree service clothes due to the 31 feel-like temperature? I have worked in 49 below degrees below, so I will be okay. But we have many elderly Republican reps. We have many elderly reps and several snowflakes that will not be able to take this cold temperature very long. Unquote. A report from the Union Leader, November 26, 2020. Quote, a Bedford bakery is challenging a fine it received from the Attorney General's office for alleged COVID-19 violations. The mask mandate goes against my inspiration for starting this business, to build a face-to-face community space, and I believe people who make the choice to come in and enjoy that environment should have the right to do so. Alexa Furman, owner of Simply Delicious Baking Company, said in a statement. Simply Delicious Baking Company was fined $500 for repeatedly failing to ensure employees wore masks, according to a letter from Associate Attorney General Ann M. Edwards. Unquote. Libertarian gubernatorial candidate Darrell Perry has had a stroke, apparently. This would have been roughly early January. He was back home, however, within a few days. Haven't heard anything since then. According to manchesterinklink.com, a Board of School Committee man, Jim O'Connell, is attempting to ban guns from Manchester public schools. Looks like a rebuttal from Dan Hines, a New Hampshire liberty lawyer. He says, quote, I think this is Dan Hines. He says, quote, I feel bad for the people of Manchester that they elected someone to school board who apparently can't read. No ordinance or regulation of a political subdivision may regulate the sale, purchase, ownership, use, possession, transportation, licensing, permitting, taxation, or other matter pertaining to firearms, firearms components, ammunition, or firearm supplies in the state, unquote. So according to a Union Leader article, New Hampshire, Hawaii, and Wyoming are the only states that don't have laws prohibiting firearms on school property. On December 21st, there was a, quote, New Hampshire Patriots Action Day, unquote, at the State House. Quote, a lawful remonstrance is to be filed with the NH Secretary of State, the Governor, the Clerk of the House of Representatives, and the Clerk of the Senate. We the people demand action. This is a redress of grievances regarding the unconstitutional emergency orders issued by Governor Sununu. This remonstrance demands the repeal of State Statute RSA 4:45, which the Governor has used to act outside of his delegated authority, unquote. And then later it says, quote, this is a public event. If you want your voices heard, stand up for your rights in New Hampshire and demand action now. Join us on Monday, December 21st, 2020 at 10 a.m. at the State House to address New Hampshire Attorney General Gordon MacDonald and demand protection of your constitutional rights, unquote. I don't remember what came of that. But that was my introduction to this new thing called COSNH.com. The New Hampshire Committees of Safety. And now they do have a really active Facebook group. Some of the people there have been contacting me. And then later on, okay, they did a demonstration on January 7th, protesting Sununu's inauguration day. That must have been at the State House as well. According to freekeen.com, December 25th article, quote, crowd of revolutionaries gathers to read and sign the new Declaration of Independence in Concord on Monday, December 21st to 2020 at 10 a.m. A group of over 100 people. Okay, so this is catching up with that announcement that I mentioned to you earlier. This must have been what happened. So Freekeen continues, quote, a group of over 100 people from across New Hampshire gathered at the now closed State House steps to invoke their right of revolution as specified in Article 10 of the Bill of Rights of the New Hampshire Constitution. Dan Richard of the New Hampshire Committee of Safety led the event and read aloud a new Declaration of Independence, which you can download, yada, 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 unquote. Continuing, quote, citing NH's Article 10, the new declaration dissolves all political connections between the state and the citizenry, absolving us of any allegiance to the state. The crowd of revolutionaries then shouted, you're fired, in unison, and signed the new Declaration of Independence for New Hampshire. Afterwards, a copy was delivered to the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office. It was subsequently served on Governor Chris Sununu hiding in his home on Christmas Eve. Here's video of Monday's visit to the State House and AG's office, including nearly all of the reading of the new Declaration of Independence, unquote. On November 27th, this article appeared in, well, let's see. Nope, scratch that. I don't have a copy of the article. Carsey.unh.edu has an interesting report. It's the Carsey School of Public Policy on the University of New Hampshire campus, probably in Durham. Quote, migration gains to New Hampshire from other U.S. states are growing, with the largest gains among young adults, unquote. Later in the article it says, quote, New Hampshire is now gaining significantly more migrants from other U.S. destinations than earlier in the decade. The largest gains are among young adults. The net inflow of migrants to New Hampshire from other U.S. states was significantly greater between 2015 and 2019 than it was earlier in the decade, unquote. I think it was Adam Smith who said the number one indicator of a successful society is an increase in population. Of course, he was writing that back in the 18th century. Now, an increase in population is not necessarily the same thing as it was back then. But I think I'm glad to see the population going back up. It was flat for a while. Did you know that an NH Journal reporter has been targeted by the authorities? Chris Maidment was attempting to film the demonstration near Governor Sununu's house, and was arrested, I guess, in response. According to the union leader, quote, "The police crackdown came in response to a new town ordinance pushed by Newfield's police chief Nathan Libenow and approved by the select board last week that prohibits picketing outside of private residence," unquote. Actually, and I should correct myself, I'm not sure if the reporter was filming or maybe just, reporting. But yeah, by the way, why are people always saying, oh yeah, the police, they just enforce the laws and ordinances? Well, according to the union leader here, the town ordinance was pushed by the police chief. He's like trying to play Conrad von, what was that guy's name that started World War I? The general who was always messing with policy in Austria. According to Yahoo.com, quote, "A woman who parked her tiny house on her parents' property in New Hampshire was forced to move out after the local government said it was illegal. Brianna O'Brien, a recent college grad, moved into a tiny house on her parents' property in New Hampshire. 6 months later, she received an eviction notice. Determined to get her tiny house legally zoned, O'Brien presented her case to the local zoning board in August 2019, but it denied her request, and she was forced to move out," unquote. When they wonder why there are so many homeless persons if they make it illegal for you to live in your home. This happened in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. This is the part that makes me the angriest, although maybe it shouldn't. Quote, "However, a neighbor spotted the house and brought it to the zoning board's attention," unquote. Oh, there's got to be a special place in hell for people like that. And when your local government has a bond issue and they want you to approve funding for something, that's what you're funding, is this kind of behavior, not necessarily the thing they say they're going to do with the money. Or at least you're giving money to the people who do these kinds of things. Because really, almost every town in New Hampshire has done, something just as egregious as this. On a more positive note, a Kennedy, like a real Kennedy, or I guess Robert Kennedy's son, I think his name is Robert Kennedy, like Robert Kennedy Jr. or something, he has announced that he has a libertarian streak and has made a spirited defense of his anti-vaccine position in a debate with lawyer Alan Dershowitz. Now, I'm not personally an anti-vaxxer, but it was interesting to see a Kennedy going so anti-establishment, and he was really eloquent in this debate. You got to Google it. Since I forget where he lives. He may actually live in Virginia. I was thinking about emailing him and inviting him to join the Free State Project. I've always thought if we could just get one Kardashian or one Kennedy or one royal to join the Free State Project, that would put us over the top in terms of the amount of publicity we need and get. But I was impressed with this man, and he was consistently making pro-liberty arguments. Didn't think I'd get that from a Kennedy, but we'll take it where we can get it. And you can be a Kennedy all year long without ever doing anything wrong, right? It's not his fault he's a Kennedy. Hey, a warning regarding what might be coming down the pike in terms of the increasing level of censorship and fascism in the United States. I'm surprised no one's been talking about this. I can't. I don't even remember exactly what it stands for. It's been so long since I've heard it talked about. I guess it's the International Committee on... I don't know what it stands for. It's the organization that sets internet names. So when you make a name for your website, you're kind of going through ICANN, like ridleyreport.com. Well, there were rumblings back in the 2001 area. People worried about ICANN, censoring names and so forth. But I think that's what they're probably going to try to do next, especially if we start seeing some alternate .coms that provide good, widely read platforms for people. They may actually start using ICANN to shut those down. I don't know how that would work. I mean, presumably the government would put pressure on members of the board, by, I don't know, getting pictures of them cheating on their wives or whatnot. I'm guessing that's might be how it would play out, which is why we so need a second internet, a decentralized one. I believe that cryptocurrency tried to do that, or claimed to be trying to do that, but I think they may have done badly. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Granite Grok appears to be continuing to function on Facebook, despite a warning issued around January 1st that they were worried they might get knocked off of Facebook. That's good. You can also find them on granitegrok.com. It's kind of like the conservative version of Free Keen, filled with hyperbole, hated by many, but in my experience, rarely caught, in fact, never caught, in a factual error. Of course, I could have missed one, or many. Hey, I have an idea for what you say to a person that wants to propose a new law, especially at the federal level. Just remind them there is already a list, 200,000 pages long, of things you're not allowed to do in the United States. And you want to make it longer? That's what I try to say. By the way, many of these things that I am telling you about today, I've already, actually long since, called talk radio about them. Sometimes Free Talk Live, often local talk radio. And you can too. Message me if you would like a copy of my New Hampshire talk radio schedule. I can't believe I've gotten 17 minutes into this conversation without mentioning Reopen NH. Wait. Huh. This message says it comes from rebuildnh.com. Well, anyway, I'm sure there's still it's all still at reopennh.com. It's from Andrew Manus, January 13th, 2021. Quote, Governor Sununu nominated business persecutor and lawbender Gordon MacDonald, the state's Attorney General, to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. A public hearing concerning his nomination to the Chief Justice position is coming before the Executive Council on January 21st. Unquote. And then later in the email he says, quote, there are several reasons to oppose MacDonald's nomination to New Hampshire's Chief Justice position, not all of which have to do with Rebuild NH's mission. And we are going to list all of them here for your review and consideration. Unquote. Now it lists various enforcements that the Attorney General has done of the governor's COVID edicts. Then it says, quote, Attorney General Gordon MacDonald, who is the chief law enforcement for the executive branch, decided to enforce a recommendation and guidance as if it is law, which in itself is an excessive use of executive power. But then he went further by following an unlawful internal adjudication process, thus also acting like a court to provide an appeals process for those who were fined. Unquote. Okay, so maybe this may not have been a list of enforcements of edicts. Maybe it was a list of enforcements of recommendations. Anyway, that's the main argument, and the most interesting argument I thought they were making against him when they lobbied against him becoming, a Supreme Court justice. They were saying he was enforcing recommendations as though they were laws. Demonstrators did appear, and people did speak out when there were hearings about his nomination to the court, but it didn't stop him from getting there. Well, my list of articles that I had saved over the last few months for eventual reading has just crashed. So I guess I'm out of things to tell you for the moment. Ridley out.
LRN.FM, 24 hours of Liberty Radio every day. Now available on satellite too, at sat.lrn.fm. That's what a satellite sounds like. Put it on your unlicensed station. Wear it in your hair. But above all, don't despair. The Liberty message is getting out. And right now, you're missing it. Or maybe you're not. But skip on over to
LRN.FM. Feds don't want you to hear them.